So I'm sure you've gone through countless MMORPGs just like everyone else currently subscribed to our channel, wondering what actually happened to all the good MMORPGs. I mean, otherwise you, I'm assuming here at least, wouldn't really be looking at this video. So, quite a few people have already made up their minds about what kind of game Wildstar is, and that is perfectly fine. The game isn't for everyone, no game is. I'm not here today trying to defend it or sell you on the fact that it is or is not a good game. The problem I see with the game currently, however, is the fact that people already have preconceived notions of how the game is based off of its early release, when the game was in its infancy and there were a plethora of problems with it. Perfectly understandable though, as I would have more or less done the same thing at the time, much like people did with Final Fantasy XIV, much like people did initially with Final Fantasy XIV. However, unlike Final Fantasy XIV, which people did end up giving another chance, people just abandoned Wildstar en masse, never looking back. I never had the opportunity to play Wildstar when it was pay to play at the beginning of the game's life. I'm still upset that I missed playing the game at its peak when there were players filling its world. Instead, I got to play the game after it was overhauled into what it has become today, which is what this video is about, whether or not Wildstar is worth playing in 2017 and further going into 2018. Now, I am going to be taking a relatively different approach to this video as opposed to the norm. Instead of simply going through parts of the game one by one, I am going to be discussing the game as a whole. If you're looking for whether or not I think Wildstar is worth playing in 2017, you're likely going to want to jump ahead to the end of the video. Otherwise, by all means, please continue watching. Now, how I see it is, when looking for an MMORPG, you have to take several things into consideration. Number 1, graphics. Number 2, gameplay. Number 3, music. And finally, number 4, the story. Now, I know that may be a few more than you may have been expecting, and that is perfectly fine. You're not required to have the same checklist. This is instead more of a general checklist, as in you will likely relate to it in some form or another, having certain areas of the game that you prioritize over others. Now, Wildstar, once you overlook the terrible launch and the poor handling of the game, is at its core a very good MMORPG. It was built from the ground up for a Western audience and is an incredibly polished game. Sure, it has its fair share of problems, but they can be easily overlooked to see the kind of game Wildstar is. An actual unique take on the MMORPG genre, filled with the quirky humor that made World of Warcraft so enjoyable, a very tasteful, although not to everyone's liking, admittedly, graphical style, a great action combat system, and large open zones. Wildstar should have been one of the most played MMORPGs around currently. Why? Due to the sheer quality of the game alone. However, as I mentioned earlier, many people jumped ship at the first sign of trouble, which actually is a topic for another video. Regardless, unfortunately, the population in Wildstar is some of the lowest I've ever witnessed for such a high-quality MMORPG, bordering on barren. The general MMORPG player base doesn't really help with this, as due to players spreading their outdated opinions on Wildstar at its launch, many people have been turned off of the game without ever having even played it. And those that do play it end up inevitably quitting due to the lack of players playing. This is, in effect, a catch-22. Players will not play the game because not enough players are playing the game. Therefore, no new players come to play the game, and more players leave. It is an endless, vicious cycle that not only plagues Wildstar, but also many other MMOs and MMORPGs. However, that does not mean that you should steer clear of the game. Not at all. Just because there are some people that dislike something does not mean that it is detrimentally bad. At this point, it's more or less people hating on and avoiding the game because everyone else did, and it ruined what Wildstar could have been. Ugh. All of this aside, in my personal opinion, based off of what I like about MMORPGs, allow me to quickly go through my personal checklist. This is something I plan on doing from now on with each Is It Worth Playing video that I do. How good does the game look? To me personally, Wildstar looks phenomenal. It captured the over-exaggerated cartoony look and style of the game perfectly. Is it your style of game? I didn't think so at first, but it has definitely grown on me. Is it something you can spend hours, days, or weeks looking at? I mean, I believe I could spend hours every week in it. Sure, I don't think I could devote entire days to it, however. Are the character models appealing? Very. I absolutely love the style that they went for. Are graphics even a selling point for you? They are definitely. Although, maybe not as much as for some people, as I enjoy games like Ragnarok Online and World of Warcraft, along with games like Black Desert Online and Blade and Soul. So, I mean, how is the combat? Is it action-oriented or more traditional tab target? The game utilizes some of the most amazing action combat that I have seen in an MMORPG, and I love it. How does your avatar move around the world? Is it stiff or is it fluid? The character movement and NPC movement, for that matter, is handled fairly well. I mean, there's nothing really exceptional, but it's not bad at all either. Are things easily explained in the game? Unfortunately, I found the skill system incredibly exhausting to navigate as there are just so many options. I mean, like, hey, it may be a key selling point for people that are actually interested in extensive skill customization, but I mean, not for me. Is the UI intuitive and easy to navigate? Yes, it is. Yes, it definitely is. Are the PvP and PvP elements in the game worth investing into? PvP, from what I have seen, is quite entertaining, and the PvE elements in the game are generally like pretty much any other MMORPG you've encountered that has, you know, just general dungeons and raids and all that goodness. Does the game sound good enough to hold your interest, or are you going to have playlists going on in the background? I mean, the sound and the music in Wildstar were okay. I mean, nothing really catchy, nothing really exceptional either, for that matter, unfortunately. Does the game's story interest you? Actually, I see that the team behind Wildstar actually took some time to compose a story for the game, but generally, I found it somewhat underwhelming. I'm sorry. Are you playing for the story, or are you playing for something else? I mean, story has always been a key selling point in pretty much all kinds of games for me, along with combat and along with exploring the world that I am currently a part of. Therefore, I mean, Wildstar managed to successfully nail two of those. Is the lore expansive? Due to there never really being any expansions for the game to expand onto the game, I guess, is the best way I can put this. There really isn't all that much lore. Although, hey, here's hoping one day. Now, these are all personal points that I kind of go through when looking for an MMORPG. So take them as such, not as something that is in any form a factual summation of the game. Based off of this, however, you can clearly see whether or not I believe Wildstar is worth playing in 2017, even going into 2018. I believe underneath the initial flaws, underneath the initial problems that Wildstar had, the game is a fantastic game worth playing through, even to just explore something dorky and, I mean, entertaining for just even a little while. It does not have to be the game you devote all your time to, but at the same time, wouldn't you actually enjoy experiencing something that you never have before, something fun and entertaining? Anyway, guys, that is my opinion and my opinion alone. Whether or not you or anyone else thinks alike is purely up to you. However, hopefully you found this video slightly enlightening. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then do not forget to check out our other recent uploads coming up right about...
We fell out of love like shooting stars, came crashing down, and we're building back up again now. I see your heart, see your mind, see